Hi guys, today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Gary Leung, the head of alternatives for Asia Pacific. It's an absolute pleasure. We got to learn about his journey from investment banking to private equity, private banking, and now asset management. We talk about alternatives, which happens to be one of the asset classes that I'm most interested in. I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as I did. Cheers. Gary, it's so good to see you, man.
Likewise, very good to see you, Paul.
Thanks for making the effort. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, you look fantastic, right? I want to come back to this. I want to talk about your health journey, which I know we've both been on. But for my audience members and the few that don't know you, perhaps you can give a quick introduction as to who you are.
Absolutely. So for me, born in Hong Kong, I've done quite a few things in life. So I was an avid swimmer, swimming quite, club level, almost international. After that, went to university in the UK, spent about 11 years there, engineer by training, electronic engineering, and then went to finance.
Amazing. What an amazing journey. Just out of curiosity, were you a member of the Institute of Electrical Engineers?
Yes.
You were.
HPI.
Did you go there? A few times?
Not many times anymore. So it's been a while.
I know where it is. It's right next to the Savoy Hotel. Yeah, great place. Okay, so I just wanted today, as you know, what we want to do is we want to talk beyond the numbers. So if I can, I just want to go back a little bit. Growing up in Hong Kong, how on earth did you decide to move to the UK to study engineering? And then what was your path into finance?
So for me, pretty average boy, grew up in Hong Kong. Parents would like to send the kids, in high school normally. So I went there when I was 14, 15. In the first year or so, I didn't really quite know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, really started to find my feet and thought, okay, life is short. I'm going to have to achieve something. So, of course, engineering is only part of that. But for me, that's when I really, started to find my interest, love, etc. in a very different place, making new friends and all that. It's been fun,
Mm-hmm.
And the other part is really growing out of the comfort zone because, stay in one place, I can very easily get by. However, in a new place, it's a new language, going from saying 早晨 to good morning.
Yes.
And then, having a completely different lifestyle. And then after that,
So how old were you when you moved to the UK?
I moved to the UK about 14 years old.
Wow, that's young, right? It must have been a bit scary.
It was a bit scary then, but I know that when I was in the airport, there were kids of like 10 years old or younger being accompanied. So for me, I knew that, hey, I'm not the eldest, I'm not the youngest, but I'm not the eldest.
But it's considered a privilege, right?
It's a privilege for sure.
And when did you start swimming? Because I used to swim, and anyone that does, I didn't swim at your level, but like I was swimming 3 times before school, 3 times after school a week, and once at the weekend. And it's full on. It's not easy, right? Where did you start?
Not easy. I started from about 6 years old. That's when my parents like, hey, just, let the kid try out and see if he likes it.
Yeah.
Turns out I'm okay. So I started training about 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay.
A bit of, kind of physical. My parents used to give me a lot of sports. So I do know a bit of everything. So everything from swimming, tennis, golf, and even, to the most obscure ones actually, that I know too.
Yeah. So when you got there, A-levels, did you know that engineering was the path that you wanted to take?
Yeah, because for me, right, this is definitely a fascinating bit. I always liked gadgets when I was young. Okay. So obviously, that's electronics mostly.
Yeah.
So, and the other part is, I think, for electronics, that's where we see, right, where technology has the highest potential at the time, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Still is, hopefully. But if you think about, all of that, I didn't regret, taking a engineering course and actually went to finance.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about that. So you did your master's, you came out, your first gig was in private equity, was it?
Actually, it wasn't.
Oh.
It was in investment banking.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I should know that, right? But go on. Tell us about it.
It's all good. So for me, my first role, investment banking, so doing M&As, IPOs, it was an interesting choice. Starting in the UK, a lot of my friends decided to stay in the UK for their first job because it's larger and it's, more training, etc. But what I did was I decided to go to Hong Kong to start my first gig. So again, it's about that, growth that we are seeing. Because if you think about an APAC, still a bit of Wild West at the time.
Yeah.
Although it's the East. But what we're seeing is that there's more potential in terms of, IPO opportunities, M&As. And in fact, it's been very interesting 4 or 5 years that I had there. After that, similar skill set actually. For me, private equity actually really helps me to build my investment acumen because it's very different from assembling a deal, IPO, M&A, to being an actual investor. You have to put up your dollar, or at least your investor's dollar into a deal. How you think about it, how you think about risk management. Investing is easy, but actually how do you manage it and how do you manage to exit and make money? And the timing of that is very important.
So interesting. And did you then fall in love with alts? That was the big genesis to your journey with alternatives?
Yeah, I think so. My next job actually at that time, it was more a private banking firm. So they gave me a shot because for me, I was pretty much just private equity. So this particular shop, they do everything from private equity, hedge fund, real estate, at a later stage, private credit, and also some infrastructure as well.
But a lot of people, if you cast your memory back then, very few private banks had private equity teams. It was actually quite new. It was quite a new development, right?
It was quite a new development.
Yeah.
Again, it's about, trying and exploring.
Yeah.
So when there, look, no one had the perfect recipe when we got in. And it was a pretty new team, all rebuilt. So it's got some history, good history as well. So we went there, really just tried it for the 3 to 4 years, really worked out. So I think that we really built a strong business there. And in fact, right, the investment universe, and also the feedback actually from the clients has been very good.
And then as your journey evolved, right, from private banking, what was after that?
After that, I actually went to asset management.
I remember.
Yeah, I went to one of the largest one globally.
Yes.
So in fact, what's happening is that in the alts group. So if we think about the industry today, while, one side, right, you've got this proliferation of ETFs and it's getting larger and larger. And on the other side, in fact, you're seeing alts is growing very strongly as well. Because what it really does give you is that while ETF, right, mostly will give you alpha if it's passively managed. Alternatives really give you this, I'll say, a non-traditional market alpha that you're going to get. And in fact, through some of the investments like, real assets, real estate, private credit, what you don't get from stock and bonds investing. So for them, right, it makes sense to really grow this group. So it's been fun.
For alts, when you define what alternatives are, for those of us that are not experts, even though I'm in love with alts as well, just can you define a little bit what is alternatives? What is it, the beginning, middle, and end of it?
Absolutely. So alternatives, as the name is known, right, it is not traditional. So by traditional, we define it as, your equities, bonds, cash, structured products, right? But what you're seeing is, in fact, I think a lot of us, including audiences, right, would actually be investing into alternatives already because real estate is part of alternatives.
Yeah.
So what it really does give you is, I would say that it gives you this really, market uncorrelated alpha. So i.e., if you invest into real estate, your rents, I think has very little to do with, how the stock market move every day. It's, due to the contract that you sign with your clients, right?
Yes.
Or with your tenants. On the other hand, if you're in private equity, private credit, etc., they have some, but very little correlation. And then if you look into infrastructure investing, which is part of alternatives, private infrastructures, then it's about, power offtake, right? That you sign with the grid, that, how much power they're going to take from you. Guess what? With all this, the microphones, cameras, electricity, and everything that we're using right now,
yeah,
we're still using electricity. And it doesn't matter how the market moves today.
Yeah.
So all of these, right, it does really give you this really, I'll say, literally alternative returns.
What's interesting is I think what makes you very unique is you have this cross-sector knowledge, right? From investment banking, private equity, private banking, asset management. When you pull it all together, do you feel that helps you become a better advisor, better, to understand the markets?
Absolutely. If you think about all of these, right, these three particular industries, they are all interlinked.
Yeah.
So how is interlinked? So if you think about, back when I was a private equity investor, we did actually work with a lot of investment banks as well.
Yeah.
So in fact, when I was an investment bank, we did work with a lot of private equity firms at the same time on, deal advisory, buy side or sell side. And then when we moved to private banking and asset management, these two are also very much interlinked. So when you're in private banking, then, how do you serve the high net worth individuals or family offices or multifamily offices to achieve the most, right? And also achieve their investment goals, really. So in fact, there are different tools to do this. And that's where asset management comes in to provide with all the tools that is needed. And sometimes you can go innovative as well. And sometimes, simple is best as well. So in fact, a lot of these, industries, right, they work very closely together.
Yeah. As the head of alts in asset management vis-a-vis private bank, what is the difference between the two? I'm curious.
So I think that in some of the investment banking terms, right, you say, you're a buy side or sell side. So if you're in private banking, in somewhat, they would be curating the best suite of products for their high net worth clients. So let's say in my role in alternatives or previous roles. So what we did was we really need to look into the client's objectives. What are they trying to achieve? Are they trying to achieve a very steady income, diversify of returns, or maybe just simply, right, just look at, fulfilling a broader, more diversified portfolio. And then they will go to the market, go to different asset managers, and maybe sometimes, right, the firm itself can curate some programs and actually help them to achieve that. On the other hand, if you're an asset manager, obviously, right, it's a broader client set because we also work with some of the, the largest, sovereign endowments, pension, etc. But what we do is that we create those tools and using our market knowledge, using our investment capabilities and all that. And private wealth is part of the clientele that we serve.
Why do you think alts, and I've been big on alts for quite a few years, as you know, but why do you think alts is probably in the hottest asset class?
I would say that the two things. I think that number one is relatively underallocated in the region today. So if you think about the US, we're looking at, an endowment will be about 35% invested into alternatives.
Yeah.
And some of the pensions and all that could be, anywhere up to, 35 to 50. So sovereign even more. So, but then if you think about in Asia or in APAC in general, that percentage is much lower. It's probably closer to maybe kind of the double digit, single being the private wealth space in aggregate. So what we're really seeing now is that there's this realization, especially during COVID years when market was extremely volatile and rates, I would say, right? Because in Asia, we've seen a lot of fixed income investments in general.
Yeah.
You've seen what happens in certain markets, in certain sectors. And then you've also seen, the stock market, right, being as volatile as it is. So investors in APAC now realizing, hey, we do need some sort of diversification in our portfolio now. And where do you look at? Obviously active management, but the other part is actually alternative investments.
Yeah, interesting. What are some of the trends that you foresee in alternative investments?
So I think one part I mentioned briefly, it's the low allocation in the high net worth individual space. So today, that number is probably in the mid-single digit today.
Really? Is that low, is it?
It's that low. Okay. So obviously, right, subject to a lot of regulation, today it is really the reserve of the high net worths. So, normally on average, right, just rule of thumb, maybe about $1 million AUM plus. So with that, that is a very fertile ground today because they've been investing into traditional assets mostly, and they accumulate, if you think about APAC, right, they have about 25 trillion of assets in aggregate for high net worth clients in general. So in fact, if you just take that, let's say mid-single digit penetration to a just merely double that, it's a large number.
Yeah, it's very scalable.
Yeah.
When you look ahead, what do you think some of the biggest opportunities are in alternatives?
I say that alternatives, there are a few things, right? Obviously it's a very diverse set of asset classes. So I think that actually changes from time to time too. So I wouldn't say, let's say, there's a particular asset class that is particularly fertile. But what's more important is actually to be able to dynamically and also strategically allocate. Because look, just like equities and bonds, right? There's no single stock that will provide you return day in, day out and all the time. So I think that this active management of alternatives is something that I think the market will eventually move on, because today it's still very much single product investing. So, hey, come and buy my real estate fund. come and buy my private equity fund, come and buy my real, like, or infrastructure fund or whatnot, right? But have anyone actually thought about that allocation in the high net worth space?
So what do you foresee as how are the challenges for alternatives different from other traditional asset classes?
That's right. So if you think about it, right, you've got multi-asset capabilities in a lot of spaces today in traditional assets, equities, bonds. How do you allocate your 60-40? Alternatives, how do you allocate across private equity, private credit, infrastructure, etc. So that, right, I think is where we are really trending towards. And that's what the institutions are doing today.
So if you're an investor today, right, if you can just think about this, because maybe they're less familiar with alternatives, how do you measure and put into place a risk profile for alternatives?
So I think that, in terms of risk profile, look, there are different, we need to look at correlation, obviously, with the traditional markets. And then the other layer of that, right, you need to look at across different sets of alternatives. And then you'll decide, okay, what's my mix? But then I think most importantly, you need to look at your investment goals. What are you trying to achieve? Are you looking to achieve with less liquidity, a longer term growth? Or let's say, hey, I want income on a consistent basis. Then your mix will be different. Because if you think about private equity, it's non-distributing in terms of asset class.
Yeah.
But if you look at private credit, if you look at real estate, infrastructure, etc., all of these, right, they will have some, kind of distribution characteristics.
Yeah.
So how you mix and how you match them is it's
down to that balance, right?
It's down to that balance.
What misconceptions about alternatives can you debunk?
Alternatives, people think that it's risky. I think that it's risky in a way that because they don't understand. At the end of the day, it's actually not that hard. If you think about private equity today, if I'm going out and invest in my friend's restaurant, it's private equity.
Yeah.
Right? 100%, right?
Yeah.
And we invest into real estate. Most of us do.
Yeah.
Maybe we all wanted to get our first house, right?
Yeah.
And it's alternative.
Yeah.
And, further on, let's say private credit. It's actually, if I borrow money from you, if I lend money to you, somewhat is private credit. Of course, what they do, right, is a more institutional way.
Yeah.
So you think about it, how they do that is adding that layer of institutional capability. So i.e. obviously they do in larger scale, but the other part is how do they structure it right? What's the covenant? And are there any other conditions, that we would impose on? So all of these, right, are what professional asset management in alternatives will provide. So therefore, I would say one hurdle, I think that, going forward, right, it's something that, I think as an industry, we will slowly get around and also work with the regulators, and hopefully we will get there.
Do you think that the one of the preconceived ideas is that alternatives is very much a long-term investment?
I would say that it's longer term in general. It's not for the average day trader.
Yeah, for sure. What's the time frame though?
Time frame, if you think about it, right, generally we look at, at least 5 years plus.
Okay.
Yeah, because what it is, right, if you think about a shorter time frame, what it is think about trading equity, trading fixed income, all of that, we mentioned trading. But if you think about alternatives, in particular in the fund format, the fund manager actually looks after that timing for you.
Yeah.
So in fact, as an investor, we need to take a longer term and actually also evaluate the manager and trust that manager to deploy and take money out of the market for you.
Interesting. In terms of tech, like how are you seeing technology disrupting your space right now?
Definitely, yes. I mean, there's a lot of them right now. AI obviously has been talked about every day. So think about, and the amount of information that's available today has just exploded. So what we're seeing is that it's a combination of these, right? When you're making an investment call, especially in a very opaque market today in alternatives, this actually helps us to find, hopefully, right, not perfect, but, more perfect information to work with when making a judgment call. And that's why, right, when you see a lot of the, recent acquisitions in the market that we've seen, so it's, data-driven, technology-driven. And the other part I would say that is probably the distributed ledger technology. So, blockchain in general. So what we're seeing is that today, we're seeing a lot of, fund formats, right? It's actually not just alternatives. You're talking about mutual funds or whatnot. It's unitized. But what a blockchain does for you, it does the same thing. It helps you to break down an investment into smaller blocks. But in fact, what they do have is a lot of automation, smart contracts, etc., to really help you deal with the operation side of things as well.
Are you finding that AI is literally now a daily part of your teams and your personal, construct of how you're doing things?
Yeah.
Because it's just happened so seamlessly. People are using it without even thinking, but you rolled back a year ago. It was, unheard of.
Yes. So the thing about AI, right, it's going to be integrating to the part of our lives. And at the end of the day, right, it's our assistant.
Yeah.
So sometimes, we would go and shout across the room and say, hey, do you know this? Do you know that? But now we just, speak to our AI. And what it is that it also makes our life a lot easier because a lot of the more mundane work, it can be processed by AI as well. So it actually makes our life more efficient and do high value work.
Well, talking about shouting across the room, one of the things that I think makes you so successful is your engagement with people, walking the floor, speaking with everyone. If you were to talk to young bankers that are looking to pursue a career similar to yours, can you just speak to how important it is to have that engagement, to walk the floor?
The engagement is absolutely critical. If you think about it, right, what we do, no matter what industry that you are, is a relationship business.
Yeah.
So, how much, how well you know people. And of course, right, there'll be information and also knowledge exchange in the meantime as well. And in fact, at the end of the day, whether we close a deal, we don't close a deal and we need to reflect, all of that, right, we do it as a team, especially at work. Yeah. Because we're in the same boat.
I find what's interesting, when I meet a lot of investment practitioners who love the markets, they're hesitant to go and speak to people. But I always explain to them that, look, it's like this. If you've recorded the world's greatest love song, if it's not played on the radio, it's not played on, iTunes, you're not going to make any money because no one's going to hear it. So you've got to be able to communicate with your guys, right? Be it the bankers, the advisors, the clients, you've got to get out there. Talk about formulating a winning strategy for the alternatives desk.
I would say that being flexible and also being dynamic in allocation. Because at the end of the day, look, we're looking at 3 to 5 years of return, right? So the key is really to devise in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you want to be? What goal are you trying to achieve? And how does that
from that?
Work backwards from that?
When you guys, because you can in theory cover anything and everything, do you do it by sector? Where do you start on the page?
So for me, at least my experience has been quite mixed. So I've been in all the sectors, obviously. So I have fortunately some great views on that. But obviously, there are specialists as well, which really just, let's say, for example, just focusing the infrastructure. So, for us, right, we work very closely with them, and we also work very closely with our investors as well, and try to, make sure that the two are aligned. But of course, for us in the allocation, that broad allocation space, that's where we work a lot with the clients, what they're trying to achieve there.
The thing is, when you look at most people in private banking, for example, in alternatives or managed investments, they came from the fund side, right? You're someone that's been in alternatives for a long time. And it's like the equivalent of an investment counsel or investment advisor. In the old days, that concept didn't exist. So what happens when the investment advisory team was set up? Typically, it was, someone who was a specialist in fixed income or equities, and then they moved into a multi-asset class role. But for guys that are coming through college now, university, and they're thinking, what is the best way to get to alts? Do you think they should go straight into alternatives and specialize, or do a stint in different pockets of the bank first?
I would actually suggest to take a broader view first, because what it is, right? Maybe just take a page from myself. I've been alternatives broadly for about 15 years now, from investments to selection and all the way to asset management, creating those tools.
Yeah.
So what I really see is, I think you need to have a more, broader view, almost a macro view of what the industry is like and how are they interlinked and how do they work with each other. And with those knowledge, actually, that's where you can bring additional value to the table when you're in alternatives.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when we say alternatives, everyone thinks that it's the newest, shiniest toy.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been here for the longest time.
Yes.
In fact, there are also bits that haven't changed for the longest years.
Yeah.
And for example, only very recently, right, in the last 5 to 8 years, we've really started to see innovation in product structures. And, otherwise, right, there will be a 10-year fund with 5 years capital capital called drawdown and all that as well. So, but if you think about this, right, the structure side and also the technology side, they contribute a lot more in this space going forward. So we do need these fresh ideas and all that from different industries.
Brilliant. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is work-life balance, right? We've got a lot in common. One of the things we have in common is that we both have 3 kids. And, it's very difficult, to be a high-level professional, very involved dad, husband, and then, trying to work out. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
So for me, obviously in a high-stress work environment, I've got 3 kids myself. And
how old are they now for the audience?
13, 7, and 1.5.
Yeah, so yours is well spread out.
Very well spread out. It's like doing it all over again.
Have you closed shop though?
I think.
You think, or you gotta.
I don't know. I have to consult my wife. But what it is that, look, big kudos to her. It's definitely not easy. So we do that together. We're the same team, and we work very well together. So what it is right, being 3 fathers, having a good family and also supportive family is very important. So I'm very fortunate to have a great wife and 3 really amazing kids. So we have fun together. But of course, time, right? I think this is one key part that I find is a limiting factor, but it's also something that is fair for everybody.
Yeah.
Look, whether you are one of the richest guy in the world or you are just an average person just like myself, we all have 24 hours.
Yeah.
Then how do you maximize that 24 hours? And the time that you have in this world, it's about how you wisely spend them and achieve them.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. On the plane over, I was reading 2 different books. I often read 2 different books that are very different, So if I've got a 4-hour, 5-hour plane ride, I'll read one book for a couple of hours, the other book for a couple of hours. And one of the exercises was, how long do you think you'll live for? And then write down that year that you would die, if you were 100, if you were 80 or 70, and then how many years have you got left? And then I took that exercise a step further, and I wrote down how old I will be when each of my kids turn 18 and 21. And when I look at my own parents, right, they died by the time they were 70, right? So obviously I'm hoping that I can live longer than that. But the scary thing for me, that's only 23 years away. When I actually wrote it down, I know it's a not very obvious exercise, but I'd never done it before. When I wrote it down, it scared me. Do you know what I mean? If you go home and you actually do it, it's like, wow, what are we going to do next? One of the things that we were talking about off camera, if you don't mind touching about, we all know people that have struggled. I myself have always struggled with depression. And I feel that, there's a certain amount of pressure that comes from work, where if you don't know how to relieve that tension, you can implode, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Look, we're not alone. And there are many of us out there, that are in high-stress jobs. And we have to think about not just the numbers, right? But it's about, things that's happening at work, interpersonal, home as well. So a lot of these, and even financials, right? Literally personal finance. So all of these, right? I think that we need to be not ashamed to go out for help, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of us having the same issues. We're suffering the same. We talk about it, but obviously some of them have actually gone through these phases as well. And for us, right, we're going to help each other out. And the other part is, I think that just try to also take a balanced approach to life. Life is not all about work.
Yeah.
Life is not, about just one thing. It's not, one dimensional. If you think about health, right, obviously that's something that we also talk about off camera.
Yeah.
That's one part, right, that really can help us, because at the end of the day, what's happening in our brain chemicals, physical and all that, that also help with how we feel about things too.
So talk about that, because you and I both did the same thing as I approached 40 and as you approached 40, we did some tests. And when I did those tests, it was quite scary. One of 2 things were off, including my cholesterol, slight high blood pressure. And then I realized, because what happens is you get too busy entertaining clients, taking your team out. And then before you know, you realize, oh man, I didn't work out. And a certain amount of time goes by. Now you've always been in great shape. But the first thing when I saw you today, I said, wow, what's been happening? Tell us about this odyssey. Share with us your journey, because I think it's great for a lot of people to really take stock and learn from you.
Thank you. So yes, exactly what you mentioned. So we're not alone. So when I was about 40, which I just turned, yes, something started to go wrong with my body. So think about cholesterol, think about blood sugar, etc. Right. So I was thinking about having that same thought, right? How long am I going to live? I've got 3 kids. The youngest at the time was about 1 year old.
Yeah.
I want to be around for them.
Yeah.
And that's my end game, right? I want to be there. That's a goal I'm trying to achieve. I don't want to be assisted when I'm 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've seen a 70-year-old doing a triathlon in Thailand, right?
Amazing.
Maybe that's where I want to be.
Yes.
So if you think about that, then I'll need to start really get my health in shape. So obviously, body shape is one byproduct, but I think more importantly, it's about, the well-being life that we're living in.
Yeah.
It's not just about how we eat, how many times you exercise, or what menu, right, that you're having, but it's about having that discipline, right, of, okay, just making sure that yourself is in check, everything in moderation, and in fact, right, well-balanced in all aspects of life. Look, you're going to work hard. You can play hard too.
Yeah.
You can also work out hard and also have time with families and friends.
Yes.
We can have all of these. And, but, obviously, right, time, again, is a limiting factor. Then we're going to be disciplined about what we choose at what time and what to do at what time.
See, your time management is brilliant. The only challenge that you and I both face, I think, is we don't get enough sleep. So go through your routine. So most mornings during the week, because this is something that a lot of people will not understand. How on earth do you do it with 3 kids in particular, right? So you get up, you run most mornings?
I run most mornings. I do resistance training as well. I wake up very early in the morning to go.
When you wake up?
5. So I try to get ahead of my kids and have a bit of myself time to work out. And then after that, obviously the whole, spiel of like getting kids to school and everything, getting them ready. And then afterwards, right, I've got to work. But of course, right, in the meantime, during the day and throughout the day, I'll try to fit in some resistance training as well. Because what happened is, at the end of the day, what we realize is that as we get older, we lose muscle.
Yeah.
So I'm going a bit very technical here.
No, go technical, because people will appreciate it.
But if we start to lose muscle, right, that's when the the 70-year-old assisted living starts to kick in.
Yeah.
So while we're here now, we've got about let's say roughly for us about 30 years to get there. We can actually start building, or in fact start from a higher base.
Yeah.
Then we'll be able to hopefully, right, by that time, live having a better quality of life.
Well, you see, the other thing I found is so my wife never used to exercise, and now she exercises all the time. I didn't tell you she had 2 major operations recently, and I found that she's getting a little bit sad because she couldn't exercise, right? And now that she's just about mobile again, it was like 6 or 7 weeks since the last operation, she can get up and start walking gradually again, right? And the other thing that I always say to people is, your children will see you, right? So if I look at my son now, he's 17, right? And what makes me so happy is like he'll WhatsApp and say, "Dad, I'm going for a run," right? And I'll be back later. The thing is, whenever I ask him to go for a run, he never wants to go with me. But I think I realize why, because I slow him down, right? So but then it's their journey, right? And then you get them, because I don't know about you, but I lost about 10 years of my life not exercising. When I was first at my own company, I was building my career. For me, that wasn't important. I just want to build the business, get it up and running. And I look back and I realize I got it wrong, because exercising gives you more energy, right? It keeps your mind in check and it keeps you balanced in all areas, right? Talk about your diet, because this is something that I struggle with. So I typically will bring lunch to work, right? But, what do you do?
Well, I do that too.
Yeah.
But I think the key is, I think just making sure that you keep your, track your macros. I think sometimes, right, calorie counting is also stress on its own. But if we make sure that we eat everything in moderation, look, go and enjoy the alcohol, right? Go and enjoy the beer, go and enjoy the wine, it's fine. But, you don't go, all night about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is fine. And the other part is, I think what you mentioned about the inspiration.
Yes.
That's, exactly what I want to do, because how you inspire your kids, inspire your family, and even, right, broader than that. And that's what we're trying to achieve here as well.
Yeah, there's a saying that I love that I often use is how I do anything is how I do everything, right? And it's a big thing, I'm telling you, with the exercise with the kids, because like sometimes I'll say to my daughter, "Do you want to do some exercise?" And she goes, "I already did it, Daddy." Right? I already did it. And then I set up little workouts. I make it a little bit fun. She's 9, right? So it's a bit different. Okay. Talk about advice for new investors, right? So, you've always talked to me about your love for the markets, but let's just say someone's coming in to invest. Where do they begin? How do they take stock of what their goals are?
I think I'll take a core and satellite approach. So think about core, right? That's where you can invest and stick with for a long time. Yeah. So it can be public, it can be private, whichever, take your pick. But a balanced approach is what we will think about. But then when you look into the satellite, that's when you start to look at a more exotic area. So maybe areas that you want to put more chips in. So that's how I would approach it in a framework. But obviously, I can't comment specifically what asset classes because everyone's objective is different.
It is very different. What percentage of your personal book is in alternatives? I'm just curious.
Look, I'm saving up for my kids' education. But all of that, right? For me, I think I've put in a fair part as well. Just want to make sure that, at the end of the day, right, just to grow. Yeah, and the effect of compounding, start early, I would say. But of course, I mean, don't put everything all eggs in one basket. Yeah. But make sure you start early, have a balanced approach, and the long term time will take care of that for you.
When did you first start getting when did you open your first account and when did you start investing? I'm just curious.
That's one thing I regret. Yeah, started too late.
Yeah,
same
for me.
I started in my early 20s, so maybe I missed at least a couple of years of that, or maybe longer actually.
Yeah.
But if you think about the investment side, right? For me, that's where I think what I've learned, and also actively learned and try to make up for that lost years.
What will you do with the kids? Will you, when they're reaching adulthood, when would you sit down and say, "Look, guys, this is what you need to be thinking"?
That's a conversation I'm having with my eldest right now.
Really? She's into cheerleading, right?
No, that's the
second one.
Yeah.
How old's the oldest one now?
Eldest is 13.
Really? But do you think about this? Financial literacy is not taught in schools where they sit down, and it's crazy. So think about this, right? No one is teaching children at the school anything about investing, what it takes to be successful outside of life, like insurance is nothing.
Yeah.
Bananas, right?
Not at all. I mean, this is something that I think, an education system, right? Just personal opinion. But, generally money is not really talked about.
Yeah.
It's the effect of life. Don't get me wrong. Some people may put it in the wrong frame, right? But at the end of the day, how you manage money, how you invest your money, all of that is actually an essential skill that is needed. So as you mentioned, financial literacy, I think is a big topic that is missing.
It is. So let's talk a little bit about your career. What drives you personally, like in terms of your motivation? Because one of the things, that I find as a career coach, I speak to a lot of guys and women in their 40s and ask them, what have you been in for? What's next? And often the answer is, I don't know, right? But I know you've always been very focused. So what drives you?
What drives me? Curiosity.
I love it.
So I like to break through my comfort zones. So as you can see, right, I've done many things, tried different things. At the end of the day, it's part of that's driving me, the curiosity, but also, right, to come with that and also to be successful in that is about, being able to adapt and having that open mind. At the end of the day, when you're in a new place, doing new things, it's going to be very different. And, you're going to have to, be comfortable with the uncertainty, uncomfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know you well enough to know that you like to test your boundaries and, see how far you can take things.
Still is today.
It is. Gary, let's play a quick game, right? Boom or bust in terms of, the future in our business. What's your thoughts on cryptocurrency?
Crypto is great, but then I think the technology even greater. So if you think about distributed ledger technology, DLT, that's probably going to revolutionize the industry of asset management. Think about they'll say that the automation of, unitization, right? A lot of these is, I think, the foundations of the cryptocurrencies. That's where we're going to revolutionize the traditional finance.
Interesting. Sustainable investment.
Yes, resounding yes, because we've got 3 kids as well. So what we're really seeing is that we want to leave the world a better place.
Yeah.
So environment is a big part. So, but what I'm thinking is that is the private side. Private side is going to drive sustainability or impact investing, right? Yeah, general, a lot more directly, because it's not a screening process, but in fact, it's really, you're sitting on a board, you own these companies outright, and you're really driving changes.
Interesting. We talked about it before, but AI.
AI, for sure, yes. You think about today, right? AI, it's a fantastic tool. I mean, it's not perfect today, right? Because we think about the amount of information available that is training this AI. But of course, if you think about the long term, if you got the right data input, what you're really seeing is that it's going to be a great tool to assist our lives. Think about from today's summation, drafting documents, etc. It's going to help us to automate a lot of things. Then we can move to doing things that we enjoy, doing higher value stuff, building relationship like we are.
I love it. I love it. It's interesting because when I think a little bit about if you're the CEO of an organization, you've got to be thinking ahead of the curve, thinking how can we embrace this technology and put it into our business, right? And I think the biggest challenge in technology is what's new today is old tomorrow. It moves that quickly, right? Exactly. Crazy. Passive versus active investing.
I think both will have, I would think both actually. So if we think about passive, right? Obviously, this is, very big right now. And to really make sure that, as a market, moves, I mean, you'll be able to capture these beta. But actually what active, is where you're potentially, right, your satellite that we just discussed will come in. Because, where you have high conviction, where you can generate additional alpha that's going to come from active. And be public or private, right? I think that we really think both of them. I mean, more in fact, active, more on the alternative side.
Gary, I've got some quick rapid fire questions that I want to ask you, right? I know you well, but I want to get your take on this. If you could recommend to people in our business to help them on their investment journey, a book or a podcast, what would you recommend?
The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham.
Okay.
It's probably that book.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's a bit old, but you can apply to this.
Gold is old and old is gold. What would you say to your younger self to give them better advice?
Invest early.
Go. Would you say straight away out the blocks? I was out with a little bit of money and
yeah. I mean, start small. At least I think you take time to learn. But at the end of the day, right? If you start early, you'll get good early.
Where's your dream vacation spot?
Dream vacation spot? Wherever I'm gonna take my family.
Okay, I like the answer. But you got to choose a place. I'm curious. Like for me, my wife, Maldives straight away. I wouldn't even get to think about it.
But for us, it's going to be similar, like where there's got sun, beaches, that we can just be, in the water all day.
Now, because you're a healthy guy, what's your go-to snack?
My go-to snack? It's going to be boring. It's chicken breast today.
Yeah? With broccoli and rice?
Oh my God, that's my dinner.
Sometimes, let's be honest, don't you just want to go for Mackie D's?
Yes.
Yes.
After this project, and I will.
When does this project finish?
This project, hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Oh, really? So, but what is your goal? What's your end goal?
My goal, certain physique, certain quality of life, and of course, hopefully look good.
Yeah. Listen, you showed me a couple of pictures earlier. You're in fantastic shape. Morning routine in one word.
Start early. Start being active. Sorry, I was being greedy.
That's okay. That's it. Start early.
Start early.
Yeah.
Be active.
Yeah. It's not easy, but I think once you've got to work out in early, you never regret it. And it sets your day up, right? And when you're done, you feel guilty. You're thinking about it for the rest of the day. Do you have any hidden talents that we don't know about?
Wow. So this one, many years back, I actually used to model.
Really?
Commercials, photo shoots. I even did some voiceovers before.
Really?
So I could have gone to entertainment.
Wow. How was the modeling?
It was good.
Enjoy it?
Until I started to get old. But
listen, there's a place for everyone nowadays, right? Some people are starting I was saying to my kids, I still want to become an actor when I'm older. And they said, don't leave it too long. I said, I saw a guy in a TV show. He made his debut in his 70s.
My goodness.
So it's never too late.
You inspire me.
What's your favorite family actor? We'll recut this. What is your favorite?
Take a breath.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
What is your favorite family activity to do together?
We like to go on vacation together. That's what we look forward to every year.
Yeah. Do you book it like 6 months in advance and
Sometimes a year.
yeah, and you look forward to it ahead of time?
Yes.
What do you got up and coming?
Up and coming, going to Phuket
Nice.
this year.
And it's good value. It's got a bit more expensive. We did Christmas there last year, back in the Christmas. Beautiful. What's the last movie that you watched?
Last movie, well, Inside Out 2. It is an adult movie in disguise. It's actually really good. Watch it with the kids. So really enjoyed it.
So as a sportsman, what would you say was your best sport versus your favorite sport? Maybe they're different or the same.
Yeah. I mean, my best is definitely swimming. I've been doing that since a long time. And what is my favorite sports now? For me, a bit of everything. I think I do that also for functionality as well. Like I go to weight training, go to cardio. But of course, with the cardio, right, I try to mix in a bit of football, basketball, some tennis, and maybe just general running.
Do you have a personal trainer or you do it on your own?
I do.
Yeah. You have a trainer?
I do because,
It helps.
I need to get help. And for me, how to get started. And actually, I have a lot of knowledge that I didn't have about 10 months ago.
Yeah.
So that's, where I've learned and where I've grown.
Listen, some of the guys that I follow that are world champions, for example, in powerlifting, they have coaches that will assist them, with their routines, their training technique, because it's very difficult to be objective about yourself.
Indeed.
Do you know what I mean? So it helps, right? Now, we can't talk about anything too sensitive, but are there any future projects that you're working on that you can call to? Tell us a little bit about.
So that project hopefully is going to finish in 2 weeks.
Okay.
But that I've been working on, really just my health, personal health, and hopefully, just set my course straight for the next, hopefully 30 plus years. So that is the next project. But I think
On the work side?
on the work side, look, I think a lot of things happening. It can be, maybe I'll start a podcast like you. But at the end of the day, I think it's something that, I think it's about the keyword is give back.
Yeah.
So, how, as you mentioned, right, having been in the industry for a while now. So how do I help the young and inspiring, investors or finance professionals, right? And in fact, it's not just one dimensional. It's not about getting into work, but it's about, while you're in it, how do you overcome a lot of these obstacles, challenges? Because we all have it, right? Be it at work or derived, into family or maybe to health as well. How do we help each other? I think that's the key.
Gary, one of the things I've always admired about you, you've always understand the human connection. Whenever you come to Singapore or I come here, we'd make time for each other. We'll meet for a coffee, maybe a whiskey, and we'll sit down and we'll have a chit chat. I find that is something that is missing these days. I think sometimes people are very transactional. And I think that, friendships, they take time, they take a bit of commitment. So I really, commend you for that. Any final words to wrap up for our listeners?
I'll say, thank you for inviting me. It's been a great pleasure. But and also, the other part is right. I think, I reiterated a few times, but it's about, don't be afraid, like to ask for help. For us in the finance community, and even right for a father community here, right?
Yeah.
Say right, we are all are going through things that are fairly similar.
Yeah.
Be it in family, work, health, etc. As you mentioned, build that human connection, help each other out, and sure that, great things will come out of it.
Gary, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Cheers. Okay.